Arnold Schwarzenegger, Terminator. G.K. Simmons as John Jonah Jameson. Christopher Lloyd as Dr. Emmett Brown. Definitely Hugh Laurie as House. Patrick Stewart as Picard. Imelda Staunton as Dolores Umbridge. Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, and Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow. They are just, flat out, perfect for their roles. Harrison Ford as Henry Indiana Jones, Jr. Jeff Bridges, the Dude. Alan Rickman as Snape. Viggo as Aragorn, and Ian McKellen as Gandalf. Tim Curry, Dr. Frankenwerter. Sorry to all those who try. Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean. James Earl Jones, voice of Darth Vader. Kathy Bates in Misery. Most of her roles are spot on though. Christoph Waltz was fantastic as Hans Landa in Inglourious Basterds. Won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Arguably the best character in that film. Andy Serkis as Gollum and Christopher Lee as Count Dukix. Bryan Cranston as Walter White and Bob Odenkirk as Saul Goodman. Haven't seen it mentioned, so Helena Bonham Carter as Bellatrix Lestrange. When reading the books, it's who I saw in my head playing her. Woke up to 12 likes and some awards. Thank you. Nice to see so many people agree. Tom Hanks, Forrest Gump. Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool. Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow. Christopher Walken in The Video Weapon of Choice. Robin Williams as the genie. Yes, there was the Will Smith remake, but hear me out. No one in the world could replace the genius improvisational comedy that is the Robin Williams genie. That's why they didn't have Will doing all the voices, jokes, and pop culture references that Robin did, because that kind of genie belongs to the one and only Robin Williams. Robin Williams' genie. Not to bash on Will Smith too much, but it just never should have happened. James Gondolfini as Tony Soprano. And yes, I realize his son may end up playing a younger version of that character, but the middle-aged Tony could never be portrayed by anyone else. Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka. Steve Carell as Michael Scott. Jack Gleason as Joffrey and Ewan Ryan as Ramsay in Game of Thrones as Odso 100. Anthony Starr as Homelander in The Boys. Julie Andrews as Maria in The Sound of Music. David Bowie as Jareth, the Goblin King. Mandy Patinkin as Inigo Montoya. Also, Andre the Giant as Fezzik. Also, Carrie Elwes as Wesley. Heath Ledger, Joker. Alan Tudyk as Hi-Hi. No one else could have made that character believable. I forget the name, but the actress who played the aunt in the 1950s Importance of Being Earnest delivered the Linnea handbag so iconically that every portrayal on stage or screen has been forced to decide to mimic or avoid it deliberately. Raul Julia as Gomez Adams. Jim Carrey as Ace Ventura. Jason Alexander, George Costanza. Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice. Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday. I've seriously seen Tombstone so many times, and his performance makes it a great movie every time. No one in here admitting no one could ever live up to Tom Hiddleston's Loki. Ralph Fiennes as Herman Goeth in Schindler's List. Never hated a man more. Bravo, Mr. Fiennes. I know it's Amon Goth, my mistake. It's been a few years since I've seen the film. Sigourney Weaver as Ripley, but I could have tolerated Jodie Foster. Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. Uma Thurman as the bride, if Nikki Bell grows up to take revenge. That is. Richard Dean Anderson as MacGyver. Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. G.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. I firmly believe he was too good at the role in the Raimi trilogy to be recasted, and so the Muku didn't bring the character back until they could get Simmons to reprise it. Chadwick Boseman. The objectively correct answer is Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown in Back to the Future. Completely irreplaceable performance. Meryl Streep as Miranda Priestley in The Devil Wears Prada. Bruce Willis as John McClane. I know the franchise had gone downhill, but can you honestly imagine a reboot going through with someone else in the role? Michael C. Hall as Dexter, Mads Mikkelsen as Hannibal, Bryan Cranston as Walter White, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Alan Rickman as Snape, Andy Serkis as Gollum, Rowan Atkinson as Mr. Bean, James Avery as Uncle Phil, Chris Pratt as Andy in Parks and Rec, Darcy Carden as Janet, and Ted Danson as Michael in Good Place. So many more. Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Michael Richards as Kramer. The mannerisms alone would be awful if done by anyone else. There's something about the way he played the character that is so unique. David Suchet as Poirot. Remus Lupin in Harry Potter. I don't remember the actor's name. Henry Cavill as the Witcher. Carrie Fisher as Leah Organa. There aren't enough mentions on the thread for voice roles, and I think these people deserve them. T.O. Bronny Williams, Jenny Agemans, Earl Jones, Mufasa, and Darth Vader. D. Ryerns, Scar, Mark Hamill, Joker, Viking, Conrib at Mandigles, Rain, Hal 9000, Trid, Cullen, Optimus Prime, Frank Welker, Megatron, and Scooby-Doo, Tom Hanks, Woodtime, Talon, Buzz, Mike Myers, Shrek, D. Murphy, Donkey, and Muse, Haptractic, Warburton, Kronker, Tharakits, Ismadavi, Spade, Kutch, Sohen, Goodman, Pacha, and Sullably, Crystal, Mike Sestive, Boost, Chemi, Randaliumus, Woods, Hidesny, and DeVito, Fildwayne Johnson, Mutini, Jake Laud, Frollis, Coulter, Akio Hansen, Salmon, Thomatal, Illard, Shagatom, Kenny, Spungbugable, Fackerbake, Patritskan, Castellane, a Homer Simps Aunt, Ara Strong, Revented in Boscos, Zukomoko, Uncle Lyra, Grey Griff, in Princess Azel, Ageably West, Philip J. Frijhan, DiMaggio, Benderstev, Og Trevor, Philip Stoffsode, 100. There is a lot to mention. The list keeps going on. Feel free to write some below. Ricardo Montalban playing Khan in Star Trek II. No disrespect to Benedict Cumberbatch, but the original performance was just so perfect in every ways. Alos. Christopher Lloyd playing Doc Brown in the Back to the Future series. Great Scott. Daniel Day-Lewis as Bill the Butcher. Jason Bateman nailed Marty Beard. Hannibal Lecter, Anthony Hopkins. Christopher Reeve, Superman. I know we've had several since, but no one embodies the role like him. He set the standard, and no one has come close since. Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, Ilanus Fisk in Netflix's Daredevil. He was the perfect pick for a live-action version of that character. God, I miss that show. George C. Scott as Patton. Scott was not true to Patton's size or high-pitched speech, but the intensity offered by Scott was fantastic. My father, who was present at Patton's address to the 5th Inf Divonmorn Park, Northern Ireland, before the invasion, was mesmerized. Anthony Starr as Homelander. Aaron Paul in Breaking Bad as Jesse Pinkman. Heath Ledger as Joker. Robert Shaw as Quint in Jaws. I don't think anyone else could have pulled off that level of unhinged sadness without looking completely over the top. Willem Dafoe in Boondock Saints. James Spader as Raymond Reddington in The Blacklist. Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Helen Mirren played a better Queen than the Queen herself ever could. Michael J. Fox, Back to the Future. Peter Falk as Columbo. Charles Dance as Tywin Lannister. The entire Game of Thrones cast. Christoph Waltz as Hans Landa. Dridge's Tony Stark. Amazing performance, and I mean, have you seen the odd comic book Tony Stark? Clint Eastwood playing as the man with no name. Kurt Russell as Jack Burton, Big Trouble in Little China. Imelda Staunton and Ollars Umbridge. Benedict Cumberbatch as Sherlock. Vivian Leigh as Scarlett O'Hara. I think a lot of people just used his question to recite their favorite castings. But think about it, and there are relatively few actors who really couldn't be replaced, or Shouldenton replaced. Many mentioned he actually have been replaced already. How many Jokers do we really need on this list? I'd like to submit a couple from the old Indesco from Cheers. Nicholas Colasato absolutely nailed it in the first season. So much so that when he died, they didn't try to replace him with a similar type and instead went with Woody Harrelson as country bumpkin Woody Boyd, James Garner in the Rockford Files. The whole show was built around his easygoing charm. I have heard of attempts to reboot the series, and it seems destined to fail without the Og Rockford. Clint Eastwood in Dirty Harry, Chadwick Boseman, Chachel, Keanu Reeves as John Wick, Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka, Ankh 100, Ankh 100, Depp Ain't Even Close, Leonardo Dicaprio, Wolf of Wall Street, Tom Ellis, Lucifer, Steve Carell, Michael Scott. Michael Cera captured the awkwardness of Scott Pilgrim perfectly. Aubrey Plaza as April Ludgate. The part was literally written for her. Catherine O'Hara as Moira Rose. Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter. No way somebody else can do it. Robert Sheehan as Klaus from the Umbrella Academy. Couldn't imagine anyone else in that role. Gary Oldman in, well, almost any of his roles. Natalie Dormer as Marjorie Tyrell in Game of Thrones. In the books, she's not much more than a secondary character. She played the part so well they actually made her more of a major player in the show. Bryan Cranston as Walter White. Johnny Depp, Jack Sparrow. Borat. Jim Carrey as The Mask. Tom Hiddleston as Loki, Johnny Depp as Captain Jack, Cillian Murphy as Tommy Shelby, Reese Witherspoon as Elwoods, Helen McCrory as Polly Gray, Maggie Smith as Minerva McGonagall, Lena Headey as Cersei, Charles Dance as Ty Wimty, as well. Just go all in for Peaky Blinders and add Paul Anderson as the iconic Arthur Shelby. Michael K. Williams, Omar from The Wire. The obvious answer might be Al Pacino as Michael Corleone, but perhaps a better answer might be John Cazale as weak-minded Fredo. I mean, the guy was in 5 movies, all of which were nominated for Best Picture. In case you are wondering, The Godfather 1 and 2, The Deer Hunter, Dog Day Afternoon, and The Conversitane was such a talent that we lost too soon to lung cancer. Nick Offerman as Ron Swanson.